I introduced my wife, and I introduced at the same time Ellen Shang, who was sitting next to her. Ellen Shang is on our board of directors for Ministry Encourager, and Mike and Mindy are here filming what I'm speaking about. And the reason that they do that is because I like to document when Pastor Matt has me come up, and I get to kind of update all of you on what Ministry Encourager is doing, where we're working in the world, and what new things that we are doing. And things that Ministry Encourager does are things that most churches don't do because they can't do. A church like Rocky Peak has to answer to a very large mission board. I don't. I answer to a very small board of directors at Ministry Encourager, and it gives us the chance to do some kind of, I don't want to say risk, well, I will say they're kind of risky things, but at the same time, they're huge blessings if they work. And right now we're working on a project in Northern Uganda, and this is June of this year. Myself and my wife Linda and Ellen flew to Northern Uganda on this little airplane. We're met at the airport by this man. This man is who I'm going to speak to you about today. His name is Amos. Amos is an ordained pastor who works there. And he came from a village, and he came from a level of poverty that was so great that his father had to take the shoes off of his own feet, put on Amos's feet so that he would be qualified to go to school, because in school you have to have shoes. That being said, Amos is the only man from his village in this part of Africa who ever left the village and went to school, completed grade school. He's the only man from the village of all of the thousands of villagers in this part of Africa who ever went to the university and graduated. And he's the only person who's ever left the villages who became an ordained minister. And that's who I work with in Northern Uganda. And as God would have it, God knows that I am not a numbers guy. I like to go out there and get dirty and fly around in little airplanes or ride motorcycles and stuff like that along with the people, because these people that Ministry Encourager gets involved with are unique people. They're doing things that are out of the ordinary. They're not just working in a church of the day. They're doing things that are risky in the way that, for example, our loan program, we give money to women who have nothing, absolutely nothing, but they've been selling some fruit that they're able to raise, and that's about it. So when we give money to them, there's a chance that these women could run away with the money. They could do all kinds of things like that. But we've been very fortunate in that that hasn't happened. So we're kind of risky in our ministry that we're able to do that. And many of these women, yes, have received Christ through the whole loan program. And we've got hundreds of women now who are out there with loans. But I mention that only because that's what we're currently doing in Northern Uganda, is the loan program. But one day I was back in February of this year. I was back in Uganda. It was just me and this guy Amos, and he says, "Jeff, I'd like to take you to my village. You've never been there before. Let me take you to my village and let you meet my dad and my 6 mothers, because the guy has 6 wives." Or his father has 6 wives. And so we went there, and over the course of 3 days, I spent about 18 hours sitting under mango trees. And when you sit under a mango tree, what you'll find out, hopefully you're patient, because when you're there, there's not much you can do. But if you go into a small mud hut type village and you sit under the mango trees, what I like to do is just sit there and listen and watch how the people interact with each other. Smell, get a feel for the countryside, see what kind of animals roam around you. Every once in a while a bicycle would go by or a motorcycle would go by, because there's no roads in these villages. They're isolated, totally, completely isolated. And the people will just sit around and they'll watch you. Whoop. And the people will sit around and they will watch you. This is the type of area that I'm talking. Now, I know most of you would think this looks like a really ancient type of survival, but right now, today, there are millions of these huts all across the sub-Saharan Africa. And people live in these on a daily basis. And this is just life in the village. That's actually Amos's father standing right there. And that's the place I like to just sit and just listen and see how they interact with each other. See how the men are lifted up by the women. The women do all of the work. They kneel down before they hand you something to eat, or a bottle of water or a soda or something like that. They will kneel down as they hand it to you. That's the type of environment which is totally different from anything that we are used to. And this is how the women will do it. They will never sit in a chair. They will sit on a blanket like that. So I mention all of this to you because as we were finishing up with that, we got on our motorcycles and we drove back to the city about an hour and 20 minutes away. I walked into the city and I said, Amos, something I noticed. All the men and women were there and they were joining. They're all staring at me and they said, well, yeah, Jeff, because you're the first Mzungu or white person to ever come into our village. Ever come into our village. Why? Because there's no reason for a white person to ever go into the village. Unless it's a medical doctor or something like that, and they have not been that fortunate to ever have a doctor come into the village. So they're staring at you, and I says, yeah, but it was over a lot of hours, 10, 12, 15, 16 hours, and they were just sitting around over the course of a few days. I says, why aren't the kids in school? He says, they don't go to school. I says, well, what am I missing here? I said, how will they ever survive in life? He says, they've survived just fine. He says, my parents are old. The people are old, they do some agricultural work, and they're happy. I says, are they illiterate? And he goes, yes, they don't do reading. You'll never see newspapers there. So it's a complete different environment that any of us are used to. But this is 2014. They're not reading, they're not listening to little radios, they're doing nothing. They're totally isolated. And it's just amazing that people still live like that today. And they're happy people. They're very happy people. So I said, in all of my wisdom, I said, while we were in our office back in the city, I said, Amos, I said, why don't we build a school in your village? Why doesn't ministry encourage you to build a school in your village? And from that moment until today, he just went crazy. He's in a whole other mindset. Because he's the only person who's ever left the village. And now he's going to come back to the village and all the thousands of people in the villages around him. And he's going to say, guess what? The organization that I work for, that God has blessed me to work for, called Ministry Encourager Uganda, is going to build a school in our village. And the people went crazy. And they were so excited. But they couldn't even picture what a school would look like in the village. So Amos drew up almost immediately. He drew up the blueprints. Very first thing he told me, he says, Jeff, we've got just a place. He says, my father has inherited to me. He's given to me in my inheritance 2.5 acres of property. It's 100 by 100 by 100 by 100 meters. It's around 2.5 acres. And this is the property. Today, those huts all got torn down. And the people were more than happy to tear down their huts and throw them away and rebuild them someplace else. Why? Because they're going to get a school for the first time in their history in their villages, right smack in the middle of their villages. So we took this 2.5 acres and we put up a big chain link fence around it. And on top of the chain link fence, we put barbed wire. We put huge gates to open up because you need to control, primarily, you need to control the cattle from coming in and bothering people. But they burned all these weeds that you see in it, or whatever kind of vegetation it was. They cut it all down, and we got a perfect 2.5 acres. And I came back here when I was back in the U.S., and we had a board of directors meeting, and our board of directors said, yes, okay, we're all for it. Let's go ahead and build a school in this crazy, wild, isolated environment. He said, but we want to own the land. Ministry encouragers should own the land. So I got, okay. So I contacted Amos and said, Amos, we need to buy the land also. It's your inheritance. Ministry encourager wants to buy it from you. And just the way God works all these things out, you'd never think it would work this way. He goes, perfect, Jeff. Okay, so you can buy the land, and then we'll build the building on top of it. So he had ulterior motives, because he immediately took that money and bought a dump truck. And now he's got his own business. On top of everything else, he's got a dump truck now. So he drew up a plan, and when you look at this plan, on the bottom left of the plan, you'll see a learning unit. That's what we now have. We just had a grand opening, and we built that one part of the learning unit. There's 2 parts of it there, just the one part in the far left corner has been built, but this is the 2.5 acres. This is his dream. He says it's his destiny. This is what he wants to do on this property. Ministry encourager will work with him, and he'll oversee all of this stuff. And this is quite a he trusts God. He says with God all things are possible. When I saw this, and I said, Amos, you're out of your mind. He said, we're a small ministry encouragers. We don't have all these churches supporting us. It's just very small. We have a handful of faithful supporters, and we do the best that we can. He said, Jeff, don't worry about it. He says, I know I never believed that I am where I am now and starting to build a school. And I've never believed that I'd have been doing this loan program. He says, God has worked miracles so far in our lives together in our partnership. So we started the construction, and in the construction, you can see where we're at. We're right out in the middle of nowhere. A big pile right behind the guy with his arms up there, that's a big termite hill. Those are all over northern Uganda. They're full of termites. You try not to bump into those with a vehicle. But anyway, this is the environment that we're starting to work in. These guys are working for 5,000 shillings a day building our school. 5,000 shillings a day sounds like a lot of money, but 2,500 shillings is $1 US. So 2,500 times 2 is 5,000 shillings. They're more than happy to work for 5,000 shillings a day because they get paid every week faithfully. Because we're a Christian organization, we make sure that we pay our bills. So these guys are able to get their money. School teachers who make much more money than that may not get paid for 3 or 4 months at a time. Talk to any teacher from Uganda, they will tell you this. And even then, they'll only get part of that pay that's owed to them. So they're always owed money from the government. But we pay our guys every week, so they're more than happy to work for that 5,000 shillings a day. Well, they got some cheap labor there too from the U.S., so I was helping them out. But I want to show you one video. Now, when you're working in Uganda, they don't use motorized equipment. This is how you stamp the ground before you pour your concrete on top of it. This is the whole thing is moving on now, and the construction goes very fast for a couple of real simple reasons that most of you would probably never even dream about. It goes fast because we don't have to run any electrical wiring and put switches and lights in. It goes fast because we don't have to run any pipes under the concrete for sinks and things like that. And it goes really fast because we don't have to put any sewer pipes in there. So this is a block building. And when I say block building, don't add anything to that. It is a block building. There's no sinks, no wires, no lights, no fans, no nothing like that. And we would like to have built a nicer building with more things inside of it, but it's not there. There's no power running to it. There's no sewer lines running to it. There's nothing. We are isolated in the middle of the jungle. So, got up, it got built. And we kept getting emails for a grand opening, and myself and Ellen and Linda flew over there, nice 25-hour flight going over there. And we got up to there, and sure enough, we had the grand opening. And what we discovered, we invited 500 people to the grand opening. Now, we've got 2.5 acres fenced off, so we easily could hold all the people. But what we discovered is in all the activity and the cars going through the bushes, getting over to where we were having our grand opening, and just plus all the confusion and all the noise and all the stuff, all the other villagers invited themselves also. So we had over 1,000 people at a grand opening. And one of the cool things about whenever you have a grand opening, all the villagers want their people to come and do a little dance for you. They want to show you what is traditional in their village. And each village has very unique different types of dancers. So I've got a couple just to show you what they look like. The high energy girls. Then here they go. Okay, these girls went on for half an hour with a high level of energy. They did their dance, then the next village came in and they had their people, and I thought this was a video. Anyway, this village came, and their whole big thing was they had a type of white mud around their village, which is unique to their village. So they took the white mud and they put it all over their black African skin. And so they come walking in, and I'm looking in the distance like, who is coming in the gates now? And it's these people, and they put this white mud all over themselves, and they had a very elaborate dance, very scary looking with these big headsets and faces on and all this stuff. And it was pretty exciting to see them. And then this is the food that was cooked. You can see our cook here, and this is the way they do all the, for 500 people, they cook like this in these big pots on the ground. And several animals had to be slaughtered, of course, because if you're going to have a meal, you know, in the U.S., you don't think about your hamburger, you don't think about little cuts of chicken and stuff like that, where it came from, because you know where it came from the store. Here it doesn't come from the store. It was walking around on the ground when you showed up. When it came time for dinner, it was in your plate. So the animals were slaughtered. They had people designated for doing that, but this is the way that they cooked there. And it's just some stuff. I'm not real big on eating African food out in the open like that. My wife and Ellen just eating with their fingers and having a great time. In some of our other travels around that immediate area, though, we noticed that some people were cooking other types of things. And this is Ellen eating something, and what she was eating, I think that they were roasted termites. And she says that they were roasted white ants, giant white ants. Is that? Yeah. But anyway, she's educated in microbiology, and she's still eating that kind of stuff. So, go figure. Oh, yeah. When I say that we were out in the middle of nowhere, we did have to have a little bit of the big city look. So we had these signs made up, and we call it the Restoration Villages, and that's more of a Christian restoration. We want to restore the souls and restore hope in the people's lives. And what we decided to do when we first got there, myself and Ellen and Linda, is we had a meeting with the pastor, Amos, and we said, what are we going to do with this school? We've got this beautiful school built. We're having a grand opening. This is the day before tomorrow. Having a grand opening. What are we going to do with the school? What do we really feel that God wants us to do? It's been a miracle that this thing is even in the middle of the jungle right now. It is so beautiful. And it looks like something that we've taken from the capital, not from a local city, but from the capital. The building is so beautiful, and the grounds are so beautiful. And it's a very unique type of I hate to say this, but it's an American-looking thing. If any of you were on our board of directors over there supervising it, I guarantee you would have built it almost exactly the way that it is. It's a very American kind of a look, but which means it's a good quality look, and you can't break through the windows and the doors and all that stuff. But we said, what are we going to do with this school? I don't want to train the young kids, you know, the elementary school and stuff like that. We've got 4 huge classrooms. And we've got the ability for teachers and administrators and those. What do you think God wants us to do with this building? Now you've got this big, like this classroom here, in the middle of the jungle. You get to make the decision on what you want to do with it. Why do you get to make it? Well, we get to make the decisions primarily because the Ministry Encourager A came up with the money, but it was along with a Ugandan man that we were praying for this project the whole time. That has nothing to do with us. We didn't want to put our name out like this, because when people saw it and people asked about it, whose school is this? We wanted to say God built this school. It's for the glory of God that we did everything that we do. We didn't want any of our names on anything. We didn't want the recognition. So with that in mind, when we met the first night when we landed in that little airplane, we all sat down at the table, and it was just too confusing. We said, well, we should do this, and we should teach them this, and all this stuff. And we said, you know what, let's just cool off a little bit. Let's all go to bed and come back and meet first thing early tomorrow morning, which we did. When we came back the next morning, all of us sitting at the table said, it's not going to be a primary school, it's not going to be a middle school, it's going to be a vocational school. We're going to keep the kids in the school. We're going to train them the way that we want them to be trained as business people. We want them to be trained in the type of businesses that we want to see them learning, special type of high-tech welding, like so that you can weld aluminum instead of just basic wrought iron, which everybody there does. Hairdressing, being taught by professional hairdressers, not just your girlfriend over here taught you how to weave or something like that. And so we wanted to bring it all up to a higher level. And because we had a loan program in this other city, We said, now wait a minute. So if we take these students all the way through school and we train them in a particular profession, what do the schools do? They open the doors, they give them the diploma, it says, congratulations. You're free to go out and to practice what you've learned for the last year or 2 years in this vocational school. What we are going to do, because we now have the expertise in giving loans and receiving the money back and making everybody happy in this whole transaction, what we're going to do is when our students graduate, we're not just going to open the doors. We're going to say, come on in here and sign this paper. We're going to give you a loan of $200, $500 for whatever type of business, and then we're going to walk with you, and we're going to go over into the town that you want to work in. We're going to help you set up your business. So all of a sudden they have a mentor, not just graduates, they have a mentor. The big problem in Africa that every one of you would notice if we were to drive for 6 or 8 hours through is you see men and young boys just sitting around all along the whole road. We could be on the road all day long. These people are just sitting around. It's not that they're not motivated. There's nothing to do. If the crops have already grown and they've been harvested, there's nothing to do until the rains come for the next planting. So they have nothing to do. There's no industry there. And I read so many books on Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and why after $1 trillion, we're still not there. And the rest of the world's taken off. China's taken off. Brazil's taken off. Parts of Russia are taking off. And they're exploding with gross and their gross national product. Uganda is not. There's something out of balance here. So our effort to do it, and we're in total prayer about it, is that we're going to train these students, and then we're going to give them the break that they don't get normally. We're going to give them a loan to go out and to start their business. Our building, this is our finished product. Like I said, I think if any of you were working with us, you'd have probably designed something pretty close to it. You saw the environment there. And around it are those mud huts. Around it are the thatched roofs. Around it, the women are cooking on the ground and slaughtering the animals right next to where they're cooking like that. And then you come around the corner, around some mango trees, and you see something that's beautiful here. Right about where we're standing here, we built restrooms for the 3 of them for the males, and 3 of them for the females. They're squatty potties. There's no flush toilets because there's no running water, but they're squatty potties. But I mean, check your address. That's just the way that it is in that particular environment. Now, this is Amos and myself. I was speaking there. Funny story about this particular scene. If you notice, my suit and Amos's suit are very similar. The 3 of us are at our hotel in town. And I need a suit for tomorrow for the grand opening. So we walked right out of our little hotel and right next door, and there's all these hundreds and hundreds of small shops. And I walked in, there was a woman there, and says, "You the owner?" She goes, "Yeah." I says, "I need the suit that you've got hanging right there in that wall, and can you make it fit my big, long, lanky body?" She says, she measured me up real quick. She says, "Come back late tonight." And sure enough, I came back, and she had that whole suit made, and that blue shirt was a long sleeve shirt. And I said, "It's too hot, I can't stand it." She said, "Well, cut the sleeves off." They're very flexible like that. And the suit was $100. I gave her, we overpaid for it. But after this ceremony here, I went back and immediately took it off, put it neatly back on a hanger, and I presented it to Amos. You now have one more suit, Amos. But that's just the way it works there. It's that fast, and it's that easy to do for ministry encouragement. Because like I said, we don't need to ask anybody approval. Things that we do are a little bit risky. They're kind of fast moving like that. But so as we don't drag this out real long here today, I would like to tell you the big thing about this. I told you the school, and you saw how pretty the school is. And I just got an email because we helped him buy a car in the city because he needs to bring the teachers from the city. There's a very small city called Otaboy. And Otaboy is on the main highway that connects a couple of big cities there in Northern Uganda. And the teachers need to get there through the bush and to the school, so we needed a car for that. So we helped him do that. But the main thing is that he's working for us. Okay? And there's something the matter with that statement, if you think about it. Ministry encouragement. We try to make people totally blessed for being the hands and the feet of Christ. The things that this man is doing in Northern Uganda are things that none of the other people in Northern Uganda are doing. You may have some people who are smart enough in churches to reach out to people that they don't even know and to do something wonderful for them. But that's unusual. Normally they just do the job and that's it. So it was bothering me that Amos was working for us. Not the fact that he's working for us, it's just that what does working for somebody mean? If you work for me, it means I can fire you. Just like that. I didn't like that. And so I'm thinking, what am I missing here, Lord? I said, you blessed us all along here. You made sure that the money mysteriously came into our checking account so that we could wire it down to Uganda, which is one of the other things. I've had problems in Uganda before with another loan program, and I would take money, let's just say $500, and I'd do a Western Union, and then I would send it to Uganda to another pastor. The man was the senior pastor of the church. He's an influential person as a pastor. And I would send it to him, and he would, at the office in Uganda, he would sign for it. 2 people knew about the money. I knew about it because I sent it, and he knew about it because he received it. Nobody else knew about it. So, unbeknownst to me, being as naive as I was at the time, he was putting a lot of that money in his pocket. Then he would see my big airplane come and land in Uganda, and then everything was wonderful and blooming and flowers and things like that. And then when I would leave, and he'd see that big airplane leave, he knew I wasn't coming back. So then everything would disappear again. So it was a facade. Got completely burned, but he was our accountant at the time. Amos was our accountant. And he kept saying, Jeff, you need to come back and talk with me privately. You're being deceived. And blah, blah, blah. I didn't believe any of it, of course, and it all fell apart. So what we do now with Amos is everything. Ellen has fixed it up in such a way from our office, because she does our books now. She sends the money right from our office here in Chatsworth. And so it's through Wells Fargo. And I'm just sharing this with you in case you ever run into somebody who's working in a third world country. So it goes right from Wells Fargo, they have it now. And you wire it to a bank. The person in that bank, I made sure I went there personally, met the person in the bank, the manager, and shook his hand. He had all my information. I gave him all my pertinent information. And so that when we would wire the money to there, that man knew about it. That man would get on the cell phone and he would call this man and say, come and get your money because Minister Encourager has such. Now, all kinds of people know about the money. And the chances of being deceived are much greater. I mean, less, much less. And so it's worked out terrific. And it just turns out so far for working with this man for 2 years, it hasn't been necessary because we found a God-fearing man, truly a man of God. So I'm still bothered by this. I said, the man's only working for me. This is a good man who's come from nowhere to being the manager of our loan program, to overseeing the construction of the school. And Lord, he's been faithful and honest. And it's not up to me to reward him, Lord, but I want to see your hand in this. Somehow, God, we've got to see that you, Heavenly Father, are the one who's doing all of this. You need to work another miracle here somewhere. And my business is basketball floors, hardwood basketball floors. That's our business right here in Chatsworth. And I was working out at Downey High School. And Downey High School has a huge basketball floor. And we were working, repairing and doing all this stuff. And I went down there early one morning and during this whole construction project. And it was bothered. I was in prayer the whole time, Lord, and I was talking like that. And I got into this big, huge gymnasium, and it was just as dark as the room here. Only the emergency lights on. And I'm walking through the gym, and none of my guys were there yet. And I was going to get set up, and I'm walking through the gym. And I'm just thinking, Lord, it's just not right. Something's not right in here. What am I missing? How can this man be in a position where I can fire him in one quick email, say you're fired? Everything that you've worked for is no more. That's not a godly thing to do. And I don't like being in this position. I want to do something greater that's obvious that you are running the show, Lord. And just as clear as I'm speaking right now, I heard 4 words. Just as clear as I'm speaking. And from that split second, it changed everything. And it just said, sell it to him. Sell it to him. This huge project, 2.5 acres, fenced in, toilets, beautiful paint, blue roof, everything. We got a full enrollment coming this Monday. Their full enrollment started. How can I sell it to a man who came out of a mud hut, had to borrow his father's shoes just to go to school First person to ever do any of that stuff. And we had dinner in his house, and he has nothing, really. We pay him like the equivalent of about $200 a month, but with his new trucking company now, he's in a better position because he's making a little bit. But still, sell it to him, all the money that ministry encouragers put into the school and all this effort. And so I contacted him, and he just exploded like a volcano. He just couldn't believe. And so he turned around within 2 days, and he sent us back a very, very detailed breakdown of the next 6 years of our lives. And Jeff, if we start Monday morning, Labor Day, our Labor Day, if we start September 1st, and our students come in, and our teachers do this, and then we get over here, we graduate, and then these graduate, and then these more come in, and the tuition from all of them, he had it all figured out for the next 5 or 6 years, a breakdown. And he says, at 5.5 to 6 years, I will be able to put the first profits from this school into the bank. And Jeff, I will pay back Ministry Encourager, starting then, 5.5 or 6 years, for this school. And I promise you, I will buy this school. Somehow, God willing, I will buy this school. Can you just imagine that? A guy coming from a mud hut buying a school and the property and the gates and the toilets and the whole thing. I mean, that is God doing the impossible in the middle of a Ugandan jungle. And that's where we stand today. Now, school's going to start on Monday, and all the teachers are coming for the first time. All the students are coming. We still don't have all of the equipment because we need some generators and stuff like that, because for your high-tech welding and things, all this still needs to be done. But that's the direction that we're going in. We've started from absolutely nowhere, from him working for a man who was cheating an American NGO, a Christian American organization. And he was working for them and warning me to a point where now he is going to be a man in a city. In the cities, the big city that's about an hour away, has about 100,000 people. There's a lot of banks and stuff like that, because a lot of banks are coming into the north of Uganda. So he will be able to walk around that bank, and somebody will say, Mr. Amos, how are you? And what is it that you do? And he will be able to say, I'm in the process of purchasing my own university or my own school up in a city not too far from you. You're purchasing a school? And I know where you came from, because I remember seeing you 30 years ago when you were just a little kid with no shoes and just wearing rags. And he goes, I know. He says, God is great. And we don't need to have anybody's name on this school. This is just a project that God has done. And I'm buying the school. And that, to me, is the whole purpose of being in the mission field. That when we leave, if our church or our organization falls out of love with an African it could be in South America, it could be anywhere. But if we fall out of love, that we don't leave them totally devastated by the pulling out of our ministry. That when our ministry leaves, we have left people who are outstanding citizens in that community. And to me, that is why God has allowed Ministry Encourager to be in all of these crazy places around the world. So, now you know the whole story. My next talk, I'm going to have some real cool photographs of hundreds of kids, because our first enrollment's around 200 kids. And we've never done it before. And we don't even have a water well yet. We've been petitioning people to help us with a water well. There's no roads coming into there yet. There's no electricity. We're looking into solar power and stuff like that. But these are the beginning stages of something that, for me, this is impossible. But, slowly through prayer. And God works things like He worked out at Downey High School. That just these encouraging, motivating things that make you want to do things for the kingdom. And take no credit for yourself. So that when you finally do leave there, that the evidence of God's work is all throughout the place. So that's where we're at in Uganda. Please allow me to pray, and we'll close this out, and we'll move on from here. So Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord. Thank you for allowing me to share this testimony with our class, a class of so many people who have been faithful in our country, in the United States of America, for so many decades, Lord. And I'm telling about one wonderful testimony. But Father, I am sure, as Roy sang in this very room, that you are here, and that this room is packed full of testimonies equally as great as what we have just witnessed here in the north of Uganda. So, Father, thank you for being so alive in our life. Thank you for allowing us to call on you. Father, thank you for speaking to us in so many private and personal ways. And Lord, we just love you and we thank you for your sacrifice, Father. Just keep us strong in our faith with you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.